And Aleph Vav.
Aleph Gimel.
Oh, because I'm doing yours. Okay, I'm sorry. Okay. If someone surrounds his neighbor on three sides and he fences off the first, second, and third sides, we do not obligate him. Rav Yossi says if he stood up and fenced off the fourth side, we devolve the obligation for all of it upon him. If the wall of a courtyard fell, we obligate him to rebuild it to a height of 4 cubits. Each is presumed to have contributed until the other brings proof that he did not contribute. From 4 cubits and upward, we do not obligate him. If he built another wall near it, even though he did not yet place a roof upon it, we nevertheless devolve the obligation for all of it upon him. He is presumed not to have contributed until he brings proof that he did contribute. We compel him to build a gatehouse and a door for the courtyard. Rabbi Shimon Gamliel says not all courtyards require a gatehouse. We compel him to build for the town a wall, double doors, and a crossbar. Rabbi Shimon ben Gamliel says not all towns require a wall. How long must one be in the town to be treated like one of the citizens of the town? 12 months. However, if he bought a house there, he is immediately treated like one of the citizens of the town.
Okay. Vav, ein cholkin es a chatzer. Achi, hey, arba amos lezeh, arba amos lezeh. So remember earlier we spoke there about where places where you can obligate or you can't obligate a partner to divide up the proceeds, to divide up the property. This is the Mishna over here that gives the exact shiurim of where you can force a partner to divide or not. Okay, so when it comes to a chatzer, that's a courtyard between two houses. So in other words, it has to have been, you've got to leave a 4x4 square for each house, which means that it's got to have been 8x4 beforehand. Okay. So and that doesn't include a 4x4 space in front of each door. So each door has got to have space for somebody to stand outside when they're waiting to be let in. Okay. And furthermore, a field. So when you've got partners who own a field jointly, they can only compel each other to split the field. In other words, if one wants to and the other one doesn't want to split, they can force them to. The one who wants to split can force the other one to split if it will leave both of them with a field of that where you can sow 9 kav of grain. Oh, sorry, where you can, is it sown or is it reap? Yeah, it's to. In other words, yeah, it's to sow 9 kav of wheat. Okay. Rabbi Yehuda Omer, Achi heba tishas chatze kavin azeh, tishas chatze kavin azeh. Says no, it's half the area for each one. Why? Why does Rabbi Yehuda disagree? He says because in the area where Rabbi Yehuda lived, the fields were particularly fertile, so you only needed half the amount of space to get the same crop. Yeah. The law is hagina, and if you have a herb garden or something like that, so if each one must be left with a half a kav area, where you can split half a kav of land. Basically, the difference is so the Kahati gives the measurements of these areas that when it's a field, 9 kavs for each is basically 3,750 squared amas. Okay, now if you want to take that, you want to take 3,750 squared amas into meters or something a little more current. Let's just quickly pull up my calculator, 3750, and take a square root. So the square root is, whoopsie. Sorry. Square root of 3750. So that's 60, basically 60 amas in 60 amas in each direction, or 30 meters. So it's about 30 meters squared. Okay, and if you wanted to do the herb garden, you're talking about about 208 and a third squared amas, which is much smaller, of course. I'll tell you that now. The square root of 208 is about 14 amas, or about 7 meters.
That's not a lot. Cool.
Yeah, so that's what you could force to split, as long as you've got a 7-meter square area for each one. Rabbi Akiva is even more lenient. He says base roba, just chatika, a roba is a quarter cup. So that's exactly half of the area that the Tanna Kamma said. V'lo es hachaklin, v'lo es hamoran, v'lo es hashovach. And all these things over here cannot be forced to be divided. So a chaklin is a hall. A moran is basically a palace. Is what he translated.
The first one they call a salon. A salon.
Okay.
First one. Second one's a hall. The third is a dovecote.
Right. V'lo es a talis, cloak.
A cloak. It says a cloak.
V'lo es a merkat, in a bathhouse.
Bathhouse, nor an olive press.
Based about is an olive press, right? There's got to be enough for each of them after the split has taken place. So general rule is if you had to divide it in half and it would still be called what it was called before, it was a field before, it's a field after, yeah. If it's too small to be called a field, then it's not a field anymore, then you can't force the split. Okay, anything where it keeps its original name, kolkin, the imlav, and kolkin. Right, that's it. But if not, you cannot force it. Amasai, when are we talking about? This man ain't name rotim. That's at a time when one of the partners is unwilling to split. Aval, this man name rotim, but if both of them agree, we're not going to get involved. I feel they can do whatever they want. They can cut it down to whatever size they want to. If there's no issur about over here. It's just, if one of them is disputing, then Beis Din won't force it. But if they want to, let them do what they want. But Kisvei Kodesh, if he's got a scroll, and the one says, "Listen, I want the first half of the scroll. You can have the second half of the scroll." Even if they both agree, lo yachloku. That's awesome. Okay. That's talking about individual scrolls. If somebody's got one person's got a scroll of Yeshaya, if they together they've got a Yeshayahu and a Yirmiyahu, and one wants to keep Yeshayahu and one wants to keep the Yirmiyahu, okay, that's fine. That they're allowed to split. So if they have a library or whatever and they want to split the books, keep the half, without actually splitting the books, that's fine. Okay. Base. Okay, now we're dealing with damages between neighbors. So digging a cistern next to your friend's cistern. So basically the neighbor has dug a cistern to catch water, and the neighbor says, that's actually a pretty good catchment area over there. Let me build one next to it. So you can't do that because you're going to weaken the walls. Right? It's only there because it's got walls. And you can't dig anything else, not a well or a cave or a burial plot or stream or any kind of or even a something for launderers, a pool for launderers. He must distance himself from the wall of his friend by 3 tvachim, so that whatever he's building is 3 tvachim away. Okay, that's actually not such a bad amount. It's just you're talking about maybe 30 centimeters. Okay, but nonetheless, that seems to be enough for the land to hold, and because of course the neighbor will have had to have distance his from the wall as well by 3 tvachim. So you've got a total of 6 tvachim between the two cavities. Okay. That's it. And furthermore, he also has to coat it with lime in order to strengthen the wall so that it doesn't collapse. A marchikin is a gefes, is a zevel. So gefes is olive, is crushed olives. Basically, it's the refuse of after you've been out the olive press. There's a zevel and also manure. There's melach and salt, sid and lime. But it's a slime and rocks. from mikotlo shel chavero shlosha tvachim. You've got to keep these away from your friend's wall by 3 tvachim as well. The sad basid, and this sad basid actually the Gemara explains that's an option. It's not as serious as the in the previous case where we were digging it, but you have to also put lime on the on top of the thing to protect it. But in this case, it's an option. That's the other. It's an alternative. So you could coat the wall with lime in order to protect it, because these other things do generate a sort of a natural heat, and or else they otherwise cause damage. But if you can just put a layer of lime on the wall, that will protect it, and that's sufficient according to the Gemara. Okay, you have to keep plants and the plow and urine and away from the wall, also 3 tvachim, because these things can damage the wall. So there are 2 parts of a mill. There's the upper millstone and the lowest millstone. You can remember shechev is the one that's shochev, that's lying on the ground, and the rechev is the one that's riding, the one that moves on the top. Shechev and the rechev, and the bottom millstone is obviously bigger than the top one, which is apparently by 1 tefach. So it's got to be 4 from the lower millstone, which is 3 from the upper millstone. Okay, because that motion also will cause vibrations and might cause the wall to weaken. There's a tanur and an oven shlosha min hakilya shehin arba min hasafa. Okay, and an oven has to be distanced 3 from the base of the oven, which is 4 tefachim from the lip of the oven itself. Because remember, if you remember from Kalim, there was a little base around the bottom of the oven usually, and that's got to be 3 tefachim away from the wall. Okay, also because the heat it generates can be damaging to the wall. And speaking of ovens, we move on to Mishna base. Adam tanur b'soch habayis. A person who is living in a building which has got multiple stories and different people living above or below him may not put an oven inside the house. Elim ken yesh al gabav gova arba amos. The oven has got to have 4 amas between it and the ceiling. Otherwise, the upstairs neighbor is going to get cooked. Okay. Now, and what if he's actually the resident of the aliyah, and he wants to put in an oven? Then he's got to put in an insulation layer on the floor that's 3 tvachim thick, in order to insulate his floor, so that the heat doesn't go down into the downstairs neighbor. Well, but kira tefach. Now, kira is similar to an oven, but it's smaller and it's not as intense heat. That only needs a tefach of insulation. V'im hizik, mishalem mashi hizik. And even if he keeps to these regulations and it turns out that it wasn't enough and he caused damage, he still has to pay. The only difference between the cases is that if the neighbor comes and sees you've got an oven inside there and says, "I don't want you to put this oven here," if he's done everything by the book, then he can tell the neighbor to go jump. But but nonetheless, either way, if it actually did cause damage, the neighbor can say, "I told you so." Now you're going to pay for it. Okay, and Rabbi Shimon says no. Lo amru kol hashirim ha'elu ela she'im hizik patu milashalem. So he goes even further, that if you followed the guidelines and nonetheless went and did damage, you would be patur from paying, which is not the halacha. The halacha is like the Tanakama, that he can, is that any damages that he causes, even though he followed the rules, he still has to pay for. Okay, Ad Khan, Bava Metzia, Tesalim.
That's on here. If one leases a field from another, where it is customary to cut the crops, he must cut. To uproot, he must uproot. To plow afterwards, he must plow, all according to local practice. Just as they share the grain, so they share the stubble straw. Just as they share the wine, so they share the branch. Both of them provide the canes. If one leases a field from another and it is an irrigated field or a field containing a tree, the spring dry a tree. If the spring dried up or the tree was felled, he may not deduct from his rent. If he said to him, lease me this irrigated field or this field containing a tree, then if the spring dried up or the tree was cut down, he may deduct his rent. If one leased a field from another and left it fallow, we assessed how much it was fit to yield, and he must give it to him. But so he writes to him, if I leave it fallow and do not till it, I will pay for the best. I will pay of the best. If one leased the field,
that's free. Okay, Bava Kama Yud Gimel.
if one recognizes his utensils or his books in another's possession, a report of theft has gone forth in the city concerning him, the purchaser must swear how much he paid and if he receives it. Otherwise, he does not avail him. For I say, he sold them to another, and this one purchased them from him. If this one came with his barrel of wine, and this one came with a jug of honey, and the jug of honey cracked, and this one spilled out his wine and saved the honey in it, come on, save the honey in it, he is entitled only to his wage. But if he said, I will save yours and you pay me for mine, he is obligated to pay him. If a river swept away his donkey and another's donkey, his being worth 100 zuz and the other's 200, and he left his and saved the other, he's entitled only to his wage. But if he said to him, I will save yours and you will pay me for mine, he is obligated to pay him. If one robs another in his field and tyrants take it, if it is a plague of the province, he may say to him, here is your property before you, but if it is because of the robber, he must provide him with another field. If a field inundated, he may say to him, here is your property before you. Okay.
All right,
that's it.
There.
With finished with Baba Basra, I thought we had Kazaka there.
The what?
I thought we had Kazaka and Baba Basra.
That was Bava Kama you were just finishing off there.
Okay, I'm confused as usual. Okay, Nazir. Okay, Zion debt. The contamination from the following sources of tumor: the Nazir must shave for a corpse, or an olive bulb of a corpse, or an olive bulb of netzel, or a ladle full of decayed corpse, or the spinal column, or the skull, or the limb severed from a corpse, or a limb severed from a living body that has on it sufficient flesh, or half a cob of bones, or half a cob of lard, while the contamination is transmitted by contact, carrying, or a roof, and for tumor from a bone the size of a barley grain. Whether its contamination is transmitted by contact or by carrying, for these and other shaves, sprinkles on the third and seventh day, forfeits the previous days, and does not resume counting until he becomes tahor and brings the sacrifices or the sacrifices. But the tumor transmitted by branching canopies or protrusions of a field in which a grave had been plowed over, or the field, land of the nations, or the coffin cover, or the coffin, or a quarter log of blood, or a tent, or a quarter log of bone, cob of bones, or utensils that touch a corpse, or the days of Mitzorah's counting, or the days of his confirmed sahas. But these the Nazir does not shave, but it's sprinkled on the 37th days, and he does not forfeit the preceding days, and he begins to count right away, and he has no sacrifice. In truth, they said the days of the Zav or Zava are the days of the confinement of the Mitzorah. These are counted for him. Reb Eliezer said in the name of Reb Yeshua, any tumor from a corpse for which is not shaved.
By the way, and just seeing as we're also learning in Zavim at the same time, it's just interesting to note that if a Nazir becomes a Zav, the fact that he's become a Zav doesn't subtract at all from his the time that he's counting his Naziris. And similarly, as a Matorah, he doesn't lose his time as if he becomes a Matorah and he's in Hesker. Well, he's not mukhlat, but he's just been quarantined. That also counts for him as part of the days of his Naziris. Okay, so carry on. Daled.
Reb Eliezer, in the name of Reb Yeshua, said, any tumor from a corpse for which its Nazir shaves when it's liable because of it for entering the temple, and any tumor from a corpse for which the Nazir does not shave when it's not liable for it for entering the temple. When I came, this page over here. Reb Meir said this should not be more lenient than tumah contracted from a creeping thing. Reb Akiva said, I reasoned that before Reb Eliezer, if for a bone the size of a barley grain, which does not contaminate a person by way of a roof, the Nazir shaves for touching it or carrying, or a carnal lug of blood, which contaminates a person even by way of a roof. It is not clear that a Nazir should shave for touching it or carrying it. He said to me, what is this, Akiva? We cannot reason here by a Kavakoma. When I came and related these things to Rebbe Yeshua, he said to me, you have spoken well, but so have they said as an oral law.
Right, so that is basically halacha l'Moshe Messina. Your logic is very good, but we can't use Svara to overrule a halacha l'Moshe Messina.
Hey, Aleph, Shalom. These are the administrators who were in the temple, Yochanan, in the temple. Yochanan ben Pinchas over the tokens, Achia over the Nesachim, Messiah ben Shmuel over the lots, over the bind offerings, and this Pesach is Mordecai of Megillus Esther. So why is he called Pesachaya? Because he was able to open up mysterious matters and investigate them, and he knew 70 languages. Benakia over the treatment of the stomach daughters, the Kama, the digger of pits. Gavini the crier, Ben Geber over the lacking of the gates, Ben Bevel over the rip, Ben Azra over the cymbal, Hungris the Levi over the singing, the Garmu family over the preparation of the pana bread, the Abtinus family over the preparation of the incense, Eleazar over the curtains, and Pinchas over the vestments. There may not be less than 3 measures in the temple, nor less than 70 superiors, nor there may financial authority be set up over the community with less than 2 officers, except for Achia, who is in charge of the treatment of stomach daughters, and Eleazar, who is in charge of the curtains, because most of the community accepted them over itself. There were 4 different tokens in the temple, and inscribed on them with the Hebrew words, the calf, ram, kid, sinner. And Azai, I missed the page, I got it. But as I said, there were 5, and inscribed upon them the Aramaic words for calf, ram, kid, indigent sinner, and wealthy sinner. The calf token serves in the suckling of cattle, whether adult or young, male or female. The kid token serves in the suckling of the flock, whether adult or young, male or female, except for adult rams. The ram token serves in the suckling of a ram's oni, and the sinner token serves for the suckling of the 3 animals comprising offerings of Mitzorah.
Okay.
We have Zavim.
Okay.
In a case where 10 shawls were placed on one on top of the other, and a zav slept upon the top one, they are all tameh, midrash. In a case where a zav was on one pan of the scale, and a couch or seat was on the opposite side, if the zav weighed down his side, they are tahor. But if he weighed down their side, they are tameh midrash. That's not midrash.
Okay, so the rule that we have over here is that if the zav places his weight on something else, then whatever's holding his weight is becomes tameh. So if the couch is heavier, so then effectively his weight is being rested on the couch. Whereas if he's heavier and he's putting the thing down, then he's not putting his weight on it.
Reb Shimon says, in a case of a single couch or seat, it is tameh, but in a case of many, they are tahor, because no one couch or seat supports a majority of his flesh. If a zav is on one pan of a scale and food and beverages on the second pan of the scale, they are tameh, both with regards to a corpse. Everything is tahor except for a person. This is the stringency that applies to a zav over a corpse, and this is the stringency that applies to a corpse over a zav. A zav creates a couch and a seat beneath him with the ability to contaminate a man, to contaminate his clothing, and on top of him, the zav creates a madav with the ability to contaminate food and beverages, whereas a corpse is not.
Madav is tumah d'Rabbanan.
With the ability to contaminate food and beverages, whereas a corpse does not have the power to contaminate in these ways. This is the stringency that applies to a corpse, and of course contaminates an ohel and contaminates others with tumah that lasts for 7 days, whereas a zav does not have the power to contaminate in these ways. Okay.
One more.
If a zav was sitting upon a bed and there were 4 shawls under the 4 legs of the bed, they're tameh, because the bed cannot stand on 3 legs. Reb Shimon ruled them tahor. If a zav was riding upon an animal where there were 4 shawls under the animal's 4 legs, they are tahor, because the animal can stand on 3 legs. If there was a single shul under two forelegs and under its two hind legs, or under one of its forelegs or one of its hind legs, it is tamei. But Yossi says a horse conveys tuma through the hind legs, while a donkey conveys tuma through its forelegs. So the primary support of a horse is on its hind legs, whereas the primary support of a donkey is on its forelegs. If a zav sat upon the beam of an olive press, utensils there in the pressing basket are tamei. But if he sat upon the laundress press, the utensils that are underneath it are tahor, and when the kemia moves them tamei. I'm just trying to read so fast to get you to shear, so
We're doing great. We'll be fine. And tomorrow.
If one designates money for the katos offering and it was lost, and then designated other money in its place, but he did not manage to buy a katos with it before the first money was found, he should bring this money, and from that money a katos, and the remaining money falls to the temple chest for voluntary offerings. If one designates money for his katos offering and it was lost, and then he designated a katos animal in its place, but he did not manage to offer it before the money was found, and the katos is now blemished, the blemished katos should be sold and should bring from this money, and from that money a katos, and the remaining money falls to the temple chest for voluntary offerings. If one designates his katos animal and it was lost, and then he designated money in its place, but he did not manage to buy a katos with that money before his katos was found, and that katos is now blemished, the blemished katos should be sold, and it should bring from this money and from that money a katos, and the remaining money falls to the temple chest for voluntary offerings. If one designates his katos animal and it was lost, and then he designated another animal in its place, but did not manage to offer it before the first katos was found, and both katos are now blemished, they should both be sold, and should bring from the money and from that money a katos, and the remaining money falls to the temple chest for voluntary offerings. If one designates his katos animal and it was lost, and then he designated another in its field in its place, but he did not manage to offer it before the first katos was found, both were unblemished. One of them should be the katos, and the second one left to die. These are the words of Rebbe. But the Chachamim say a katos is not left to die unless it was found after the owners received atonement, and katos money does not go to the Dead Sea unless it was found after the owners received atonement. If one designates a katos and is now blemished, he sells it and brings with his proceeds another katos. If Elazar, the son of Reb Shimon, said if the second katos was offered before the first was slaughtered, the first katos must be left to do so, for the owner has already received atonement. More. No. How does one subterfuge regarding a bechor? Concerning an animal that was pregnant with a first offering, one declares, what is in this one's womb? If it is a male, it is an olah. And if she gave birth to a male, it is offered as an olah. And if she declares it is a female, it's a shlomin offering. If she gave birth to a female and a shlomin, if one declares that the fetus is a male, it is an olah. And if it is a female, it is a shlomin offering. If she then gave birth to a male and a female, the male is offered as an olah, the female is offered as a shlomin.
Okay. And that's it. And I'm going to run to shul.
I'm going to take a breath. Okay. Have a good day. Bye. Yeah.